At the beginning of the story, a party was underway at the Leroy family's house. 4 or 5 people arrived, and as they entered, the party guests began to praise them, recognizing them as Mr. and Miss Leroy's children. They praised them upon hearing about their superpowers, yet the eldest daughter of the Leroy family had not manifested any abilities yet. This was strange, as she was the only one without any power, which puzzled everyone at the party. As Letitia entered the room, she overheard the conversations around her about everyone's powers. Despite feeling a pang of insecurity, she reminded herself not to let their words upset her, knowing she felt inadequate compared to the others. In the next scene, Mr. Leroy appeared tense, struggling to come to terms with the fact that Letitia was his daughter. Mrs. Leroy, noticing his distress, urged him to calm down, reminding him that they still had 4 other children with powers. Meanwhile, Letitia, feeling disheartened, apologized sadly for not having any powers. Mr. Leroy shouted again, demanding to know if Letitia truly had no powers at all. He insisted that even if it was something insignificant, she should still tell everyone. However, Letitia, unaware of any power she might possess, Mr. Leroy furiously demanded that Letitia apologize repeatedly, while Mrs. Leroy attempted to calm him down. Feeling overwhelmed, Mr. Leroy confessed that he felt suffocated every time he saw Letitia. Mrs. Leroy intervened, asking him to calm down and suggesting they discuss the matter further the next. Mr. Leroy reluctantly agreed, realizing that it was their second daughter Diana's birthday. The next day, so he decided to hold back his emotions until then. He mentioned that he needed to ensure everything was perfect for Diana's birthday party. Mrs. Leroy offered to help, asking him to let her join in the preparations. Hearing this, Letitia felt deeply saddened, remembering how her own birthday had been neglected by Mr. and Mrs. Leroy. In the next scene, on Letitia's birthday, she excitedly reminded her father that it was her special day. However, Mr. Leroy harshly shouted at her, questioning why she was even bothering to mention her birthday when she was too old for such things. Letitia's heart sank upon hearing her father's words, feeling as though she was causing unnecessary trouble. Ultimately, she blamed herself for everything, believing that if only she had powers, her parents wouldn't be disappointed in her, and her siblings wouldn't treat her with disdain. She carried the weight of guilt, convinced that it was all her fault. Let me introduce you to Letitia's siblings. Her second sister is Diana, followed by her third brother, Emile, and her fourth brother, Xavier. Lastly, there's Letitia's youngest sister named Irene. In the next scene, as Diana approached, Letitia walked sadly with her head bowed down. When they reached the same spot, Diana rudely demanded that Letitia move out of her way and let her pass. Tensely, Letitia asked, "What?" Diana retorted, questioning whether Letitia couldn't see that she was blocking her way. Feeling dejected, Letitia apologized, expressing that she hadn't meant to do it intentionally. Diana looked at Letitia strangely and asked when she was going to stop embarrassing them. She pointed out that Letitia was the only one in the family who hadn't manifested any powers, and people were starting to call her names like an illegitimate child and a mutant. Diana also questioned whether Letitia understood how ashamed they felt because of her. Letitia was shocked to hear all of this and looked at Diana with a stunned expression. Furiously, Diana demanded to know if Letitia truly had no powers at all, and if there was anything she could do properly. Letitia was unable to respond, only murmuring to herself. Diana angrily ordered Letitia to get out of her way, expressing her disdain for Letitia's perceived inadequacies. Witnessing this, Letitia felt shocked and deeply saddened. The scene shifted to some time later in Letitia's room, where she was resting on her bed. A maid knocked on the door, and Letitia invited her in. Upon seeing the maid, Mary, Letitia felt a slight sense of relief, knowing that Mary was a kind and caring maid. Mary entered the room to offer Letitia some tea, but Letitia declined, stating that she wanted to go to bed early to get some rest. Observing Letitia's demeanor, Mary wore a sympathetic expression and asked if something had happened again in the house. With tears in her eyes, Letitia sat on her bed, replaying the hurtful incidents with her father and sister in her mind. Their words felt like daggers piercing her heart, leaving her feeling emotionally wounded and vulnerable. Letitia turned to Mary and asked how it was possible that she didn't have any powers. Mary, unable to provide an answer, simply tried to soothe her. Letitia's tension grew, and she asked again why everyone in her family, including Diana, Emil, Xavier, and even the youngest Irene, had powers while she didn't have anything. Feeling deeply saddened, Letitia expressed how it always made her wonder why she was the only one without any powers, why she had to be the only one left without any abilities. She couldn't shake off the memory of the hurtful words Diana had said to her, all because she lacked any powers. Mary attempted to calm down Letitia by suggesting that perhaps she also had a special power that hadn't manifested yet. Letitia asked for an example, putting Mary in a tense situation as she didn't have any example to provide. Letitia smiled and reassured Mary not to worry about her question. Then she inquired about Mary's younger sister, asking how she was doing and if there had been any improvement in her condition. Sadly, Mary responded that her sister hadn't gotten worse, but she also hadn't gotten any better. Mary shared with Letitia that the doctor had recommended using different medicine for her sister, but it was too expensive for her family to afford. Moved by Mary's plight, Letitia took out a garland of pearls and insisted that Mary take it, explaining that it held no value to her and could be of help to Mary instead. Mary expressed her concern that Mr. Leroy would be very angry if he found out about Letitia's gesture. However, Letitia reassured her that it didn't matter to her. Touched by Letitia's kindness, Mary took Letitia's hands and expressed her appreciation for her efforts, explaining that it meant more to her than anything else. Letitia became emotional at Mary's heartfelt gratitude. Mary laughed and jokingly shared her wish for money to fall from the sky so she could gather it all up. Letitia joined in the laughter, agreeing that it would certainly be quicker to find money on the street that way. As nighttime approached, Letitia urged Mary to return home before it got too dark. However, Mary replied that her working hours weren't over yet. Letitia smiled warmly and reassured Mary not to worry about her duties, reminding her that she was also concerned about her sister's well-being. Touched by Letitia's concern, Mary became emotional and happily agreed. She declared that she was calling it a day off then. As Mary was leaving, Letitia expressed her wish that Mary would find some money on the streets. Mary laughed and promised to pick it up if she came across any. As Mary left the house, she couldn't help but feel sorry for Letitia, recognizing her kindness and the struggles she was facing. Determined to bring a smile to Letitia's face, Mary decided that the next day she would make a dessert for Letitia to lift her spirits and make her feel. Suddenly, Mary spotted a gold coin lying in front of her on the road. She picked it up and examined it closely to confirm that it was indeed a gold coin. Overjoyed, Mary remembered Letitia's wish for finding money on the streets. However, she also considered the possibility that it could be a coincidence. In the next scene, Letitia sat beside a boy. It was Rivian, Letitia's fiancé. Rivian shared that he was going to become an Imperial Knight. Hearing this, Letitia responded that she would cheer him on. The scene then returns to the present time, where Letitia was thinking about Rivian. Wanting Rivian to do well in his Imperial Knight test, she decided that she should show him some support. Letitia then asked Mary to pass her the handkerchief from the table. However, Mary was still lost in thoughts about the incident with the gold coin and wasn't paying attention. Letitia called Mary's name 2 or 3 times before Mary finally heard her and asked. Letitia asked why Mary seemed so lost in thought, but Mary responded with a simple no, explaining that she was just spacing out for a moment. Mary then handed over the handkerchief to Letitia and asked if there was anything else she needed. But Letitia responded with a no, explaining that the handkerchief would suffice for her needs, and she thanked Mary for assisting her. Letitia was on her way to meet Rivian when Diana intercepted her. Diana asked if she was heading somewhere. Letitia responded that she was going to see Rivian. Diana then asked for the reason, which shocked Letitia. Did she really need a reason to meet her fiancé? Letitia asked again why she needed a reason to meet Rivian. Though frustrated, she calmly explained that she was just going to see him and wish him good luck for his test. She then asked if there was something wrong with that. Diana laughed and told Letitia that she thought it would be of any help to Rivian. Then Diana left. Letitia couldn't help but wonder why Deanna was treating her like that. In the next scene, Letitia was traveling in a buggy to get to Rivian's place. Upon reaching there, she felt something strange in the air. As she got out of the buggy, she wondered where Rivian was. Rivian came near her, and Letitia's face lit up with happiness upon seeing him. Rivian asked why she was there at his place. Letitia happily shared that she just wanted to wish him well, but Rivian denied it, saying there wasn't a need for her wishes. Letitia asked for forgiveness, expressing concern that she might have made him uncomfortable, and promised to leave soon. Rivian started to walk away, but Letitia shouted for him to wait for a minute. It's because she had made a handkerchief for Rivian and was hoping for her gift to be accepted by him. Letitia then shared that she had brought a gift for him. But to Letitia's surprise, Rivian directly asked about her powers. Hearing this, Letitia asked for forgiveness, feeling like she didn't hear correctly. Rivian asked again if she still hadn't awakened any powers. Letitia was shocked by the question and apologized to him, admitting that she still hadn't received anything. Rivian looked at Letitia with a strange expression and then said sarcastically that she must have had plenty of time if she was spending it on preparing useless things like a handkerchief. Letitia felt deeply saddened by his words and tried to say something in response. But soon Rivian shared that he was leaving. Letitia asked why he was going, to which Rivian responded by asking if he had any reason to stay there. Letitia felt sad, but she also understood that she was his fiancée, and it was natural for him to be upset because she hadn't awakened any powers yet. Lost in deep thought, Letitia was walking carelessly on the road when suddenly she bumped into a man. She was about to fall to the ground, but the man saved her by holding her. Letitia apologized, realizing that she wasn't paying attention to where she was. The man, named Enoch Achilles, was also uncomfortable at that moment. Suddenly, Letitia noticed blood on Enoch's hand and became tense. Enoch asked her if she was fine, and Letitia responded with a yes, assuring him that she was okay. However, she asked if he got hurt because of her. Enoch reassured Letitia that he wasn't injured, expressing relief that she was also uninjured. Then Enoch said goodbye to her. However, Letitia couldn't stop thinking about his blood, so she called out to him to come back. Letitia then extended her handkerchief towards Enoch and asked if he wouldn't mind accepting it. She explained that the handkerchief was really crude, but before Letitia could finish her sentence, Enoch hesitated at first. But soon he took the handkerchief from her hand and began to tuck it into his jacket. Seeing this, Letitia became sad and asked why Enoch was putting the handkerchief inside. Enoch didn't understand why Letitia was shouting, so she explained that he needed to wipe his blood. Hearing this, Enoch asked if it wouldn't be unpleasant as the handkerchief would get stained with blood, considering it was her precious handkerchief. Hearing the word precious, Letitia felt incredibly happy as someone appreciated her work. With joy, she asked Enoch to give her the handkerchief back. After taking it from him, she started tying it around Enoch's hand. Enoch felt tense and asked her not to do it as it would get blood on the handkerchief. But Letitia reassured him not to worry, saying he didn't need to return the handkerchief to her. After tying the handkerchief, Letitia happily exclaimed that everything would be okay. Enoch then asked if he may. Would she let him know her name? Letitia happily introduced herself to him as Letitia Leroy, the eldest daughter of the Leroy family. The scene then shifted to a fighting arena where Enoch was engaged in combat with someone and emerged victorious. The audience began to discuss Enoch, praising his swordsmanship skills, noting his ability to strike at vital spots with precision. Someone in the crowd asked if Enoch was a duke, but they denied it, clarifying that he only had Duke in his name and hadn't undergone any succession ceremony. They continued murmuring among themselves, acknowledging that Enoch couldn't be called a duke if he hadn't undergone the ceremony to succeed the title. Furthermore, they noted that he couldn't have a succession ceremony even if he wanted to, as his family had no money. Despite his impressive skills, Enoch always failed in tests. On the first day of Enoch's entrance test, the Duchess passed away, and during the second test, a lone shark disrupted the scene. So they wondered how he would fail next time, given the unfortunate circumstances surrounding his previous attempts. Enoch pondered over all of this and found himself wondering. On the day of the entrance test, he had thought about saying to the audience why they didn't practice the sword instead of making such useless bets. Enoch felt deeply saddened by his string of bad luck and questioned why he was constantly struck by misfortune. Lost in his thoughts and walking absent-mindedly on the road, he collided with Letitia. This was the backstory behind how Enoch ended up bumping into Letitia at that moment. Enoch was stunned by Letitia's beauty as she handed him her handkerchief. He couldn't help but wonder if she had made it herself. Despite his initial surprise, he was touched by Letitia's gesture and her cheerful reassurance not to worry about returning the handkerchief. They introduced themselves to each other, and Enoch headed off for his third entrance exam, feeling a newfound sense of optimism. On his way to the exam, Enoch found himself thinking that perhaps he wouldn't be so unlucky this time. Arriving at the night cadet test site, the announcer suddenly declared that Enoch Achilles was the winner, passing the 458th night cadet. Enoch was shocked by the unexpected turn of events. The audience was puzzled, wondering how Enoch managed to win with an injured hand, speculating if he was some kind of monster. This unexpected victory mirrored Letitia's earlier wish coming true for Enoch as well, adding another surprising twist to the story. Scenes then shifts to Leroy's house, where Letitia returns home. Mary noticed Letitia's return, but she observed blood on her hands. Concerned, Mary asked if Letitia had been injured and inquired why she was hurt, emphasizing the need for Letitia to take care of herself. Letitia reassured Mary not to worry, explaining that the blood wasn't hers. Mary let out a sigh of relief, admitting she was scared that Letitia had been hurt. She then mentioned she would go and fetch her clean handkerchief. At the mention of the handkerchief, Letitia's thoughts turned to Enoch. Letitia revealed that she had given her handkerchief to someone in need. Mary asked if the handkerchief wasn't precious to her. Letitia reassured Mary that it was all right, mentioning she had others as well. Mary felt a wave of relief wash over her upon hearing this. Suddenly, Letitia announced her plans to prepare Diana's birthday gift in advance. Mary inquired about what Letitia had chosen for Diana's gift. Letitia playfully asked if Mary was curious to know. Mary eagerly responded with it. Letitia teasingly replied that it was a secret for everyone. After some time, the scene shifted to Diana's birthday celebration, where everyone was congratulating and wishing her. Diana responded with joy, expressing that it was her best birthday party ever. There, Letitia came searching for Diana. Spotting her, Letitia called out her name to get her attention, but Diana, upon seeing her, didn't seem very pleased. Diana casually asked why she was being called. Letitia replied that she wanted to congratulate her on her birthday. Diana thanked Letitia for the birthday wish, and Letitia handed her the birthday present she had prepared. Diana was pleasantly surprised to see that Letitia had brought a gift for her. The other guests at Diana's party started encouraging her to open it in front of everyone, eager to see the gift as well. When Diana opened the gift, she found an old-fashioned brooch inside. Diana remarked that Letitia must have chosen it herself to give her. However, one girl standing nearby commented that the brooch seemed like it was trendy a decade ago, but she still found it. Diana felt furious, but she couldn't show it to everyone, so she simply closed the box. Suddenly, another girl approached Diana and revealed that she knew Letitia had prepared that gift, implying that Letitia had also prepared another gift for Diana. Diana asked why Letitia had prepared two gifts. The girl responded, explaining that she remembered Diana mentioning she liked her brooch. It turns out, the girl had bought that very brooch for Diana after hearing her admiration for it. Everyone present was stunned by the beauty of the brooch. It was exquisite and gorgeous. Diana expressed her gratitude to the girl for the thoughtful gift, promising to cherish it forever. As everyone was clapping and filled with happiness, Letitia stood there with a sad expression. Diana noticed her and made an announcement in the party room. She declared that she would go and leave the gifts in her room with Letitia. Diana then encouraged everyone to continue enjoying the party while she stepped away for a moment. Slowly, both Diana and Letitia left the room. As they reached outside, Diana suddenly stopped and glared angrily at Letitia. With frustration, Diana threw the gift back to Letitia and firmly told her not to give her something like that again. Letitia sadly explained that she wanted to gift Diana something for her birthday. Diana shouted back, saying if Letitia wanted to gift her, she should have chosen a proper gift. She criticized the brooch as outdated and questioned who would wear something like that in the present time. Diana then asked Letitia not to come to her birthday party again. Letitia was shocked and asked why, reminding Diana that they were sisters. They were family, and Diana was telling Letitia not to congratulate her on her birthday. Diana sarcastically asked if Letitia referred to family as someone who brings disgrace to the household. Letitia asked her sadly what she meant by that. Diana responded, asking if Letitia really needed to ask. Diana then responded that if Letitia had no power, she should at least be quick to catch on, but still, Letitia tried to stick her nose into everyone's business. Diana also expressed pity for Letitia. Letitia felt frustrated with herself, feeling ashamed because it had taken her months to choose that brooch for Diana, and Diana's reaction made her feel even more ashamed. However, despite her feelings, Letitia tried to reassure herself that everything would be all right. The scene then shifted back to the party where Letitia's father, Marries Leroy, was chatting with everyone. Suddenly, a church father named Chaeundo arrived. Chaeundo met with Marries, where Marries thanked Father Chaeundo for coming to the party. Chaeundo replied that it was his daughter's birthday, so of course he should be there at the party. Marries asked Chaeundo to allow him to introduce his daughter to him. Marries then introduced Diana to Father Chaeundo as his second daughter, and Diana greeted Father Chaeundo warmly. Marries then furiously looked at Letitia and instructed her to introduce herself to Father Chaeundo. Letitia then introduced herself and apologized, explaining that she wasn't feeling well and asked if she could be excused for some time. Marries responded by reminding Letitia that she should be congratulating her sister on her birthday. Diana also spoke up, expressing her desire to enjoy the party and requesting to be excused as well. Marries happily agreed with Diana's request to be excused. Upon seeing this, Father Chaeundo remarked that he noticed Marries loved his second daughter more. Marries responded with a yes, explaining that she was the one who brought the household back to life. Father Chaeundo inquired about Letitia, prompting Marries to express his concern that she still hadn't manifested any power. Chaeundo remarked on how strange it was, considering House Leroy's reputation for producing outstanding talents in various fields for generations. Yet Letitia's power had still not manifested. Chaeundo decided that he needed to have a chat with Letitia. The history of the Leroy family began a long time ago, with the House of Leroy facing financial troubles when their business failed. To add to their difficulties, Marchioness Leroy was diagnosed with a condition that meant she would never be able to conceive again. However, one day the family's fortunes turned around and their business started to flourish once more. Miraculously, the Marchioness also regained her health. The Leroy house was successfully reconstructed, and Marquis and Marquise Leroy began to wonder when things started going so well. Marquise actually believed that it was after the birth of the child named Diana. In the scene where Marquise and Father Chaeundo were talking, Marquise was happily sharing that they were so fortunate to have Diana, and they would always be grateful to God for her. Father Chaeundo asked about the power of Marquise's second daughter. Marquise shared that her power was to create a flower rain. Father Chaeundo was surprised and asked for clarification. Marquise explained that her second daughter was able to create a rain of flowers, which was incredibly beautiful. Seeing this, Father Chaeundo understood that Marquise seemed to favor his second daughter deeply. Chaeundo then shared with Marquise that his eldest daughter also seemed kind and lovely. However, Marquise wasn't happy about it, because Letitia hadn't manifested her power yet. Father Sayos asked Marquess to not be so cold towards Letitia as she was also his daughter. Marquess furiously responded that was exactly what he had thought initially, that she was his daughter, whether she had powers or not. However, he explained that, because they were in the public eye, it wouldn't be easy for Letitia to get engaged. Father Sayos asked, shockingly, if Marquess was considering breaking off the engagement. Marquess responded that, strictly speaking, the engagement wouldn't be broken off, as he was sure they also preferred Diana over Letitia. Father Sayos shouted at Marquise, urging him not to do anything foolish and reminding him to consider what he would do if Letitia really had some power. He warned Marquess not to forget that there was something more than meets the eye. Marquess remained silent and did not respond to Sayos. Father Sayos then told Marquess that it had been so long since he came, so he didn't want to waste his time sitting down. Marquess offered to show Sayos the way, but Sayos declined, saying it wasn't his first time in the garden, so there was no need for Marquise to show him the way. Marquess remained silent, lost in thought about the past. He recalled a day when they were giving a name to Letitia, and Marchioness shared the distressing news that they had received a letter of demand for their debt. At the time of Diana's birth, they were overjoyed that she was born healthy, and it marked a turning point as they were entering into a contract with their family. Marquess was elated with Diana, so he decided to talk with Marquess L. Where he would suggest to Marquess L to break off the engagement with Letitia, so Diana could marry his son. In the next scene, Marquess and everyone else were having dinner together. There, Marquess asked Diana about her day. Diana shared that she had a chat with Rivian over some tea. Marquess then asked angrily whether it was Rivian or Lord Rivian. Diana responded with a yes and told that Rivian apologized for not being able to attend her birthday party, and he also gave her a gift. Diana then showed Rivian's gift to her father, asking whether it wasn't good. Marquess responded that it looked very good on her, and Diana also said that she was going to wear it all the time. Hearing this, Letitia was shocked as she couldn't believe that Rivian only came to gift Diana and didn't meet with her. Marquess then asked Emil about his academy and his preparation for the public official exam at the Imperial Palace. Emil responded that he was working very hard, assuring Marquess that he could trust him. Marquess then asked Irene about how she was doing at the Academy of Magic. Irene shared that she had again received full marks in the exam. Here, Letitia was thinking that if she asked them why they weren't celebrating her birthday, everyone would think of her as a nuisance and laugh at her. Everyone there was talking and laughing while having dinner. But now Letitia wasn't sure what to do, so she stood up and apologized to everyone, saying she was going to her room because she was feeling tired, though she didn't know why. While Letitia was leaving, Marquess looked at her very seriously. The moment she went out of the room and closed the door, Marquess asked Diana what she thought of Lord Rivian. Diana didn't understand the question, unsure of what aspect of Rivian Marquess was referring to. So Marquess clarified that he was asking Diana what she thought of Lord Rivian as a potential marriage partner. Hearing this, everyone in the room was shocked, and Diana confirmed back, asking if Marquess was really asking about her and Rivian's marriage. Marquess shared that he would talk to Marquis LM and suggest canceling the engagement between Letitia and Rivian, proposing that Diana could get engaged to Rivian instead of Letitia. He then asked for Diana's opinion on the matter. Diana wasn't able to respond immediately, but in reality, she was very happy and blushing because she was chosen for the engagement. In the next scene, Letitia was going out to meet Rivian, but she got interrupted by Diana, who asked where she was going. Letitia responded that she was going to see Rivian. Hearing this, Diana laughed, which made Letitia tense, prompting her to ask why Diana was laughing. Letitia also asked why she was feeling something out of place. Diana responded that it was just because she was feeling sorry for her, but in reality, Diana was very happy about Letitia's upcoming situation. Hearing this, Letitia became tense and looked very sad. Seeing her reaction, Diana asked her not to worry and to stop frowning as she was just joking. Diana then expressed her hope that Letitia would have a good time. Seeing Diana's smile, Letitia felt nervous. As she stepped outside, she couldn't stop thinking about Diana's words and why she was feeling sorry for her. However, soon Letitia made herself strong, determined not to let it bother her. The scene then shifted to Rivian's house, where Rivian was having a chat with Letitia. Rivian shared that it had been a while since they had last met. Letitia also asked about his health, to which Rivian responded that he was always the same. Letitia then asked why he had only met with Diana that day, expressing that she felt bad about it and wished he had met with her as well. Suddenly, Letitia's mood shifted again, and she asked how his training was going, and if it made him feel tired. Rivian showed tension and shared that Letitia was always so carefree. Hearing this, Letitia didn't understand and asked him to share again. Rivian then asked if she didn't know what their families were talking about these days. He then repeated that their families were discussing canceling their engagement. Letitia was shocked and asked what he really meant. Rivian was stunned by her question and shared that he couldn't believe she didn't know anything. He then asked her if she had nothing to say. She could go back to her house. Letitia tensely asked for Rivian's response to that decision. Rivian sat silently, remembering their old times when they played house games and always praised each other. So Rivian responded to Letitia that they were now old enough to not play house games, and she should keep that in mind. Letitia got confused over that statement and asked what he really meant to say. Rivian responded that he was asking her to break off the engagement as it would be better for both of them. From that moment, Letitia was heartbroken as she broke up with her fiancé. She shared that from the beginning she had been trying to deny the things that were going wrong, but everything was rising to the surface once again. She started crying as, once again, she was the only person who didn't know anything about what was happening. While heading back to her house, Letitia pondered when everything had started. She wondered since when it had been just her, and questioned if the engagement was truly going to be canceled. However, she wasn't ready to accept that everything was inevitably going to happen. She then knocked from inside the buggy to ask the driver if they could go to the plaza. The driver responded with a yes. Letitia decided that she would act like she hadn't heard anything. In a few minutes, they arrived at the plaza, and Letitia thanked the driver for dropping her there. The driver then asked if Letitia was sure she would be all right without a maid. Letitia responded with a yes, as she was sure about it. There at the plaza, it was very bustling, with children playing and people buying fruits and playing games. She remembered how she used to come to the plaza quite often with her brothers and sisters when she was younger. Suddenly, she saw the game of spin the wheel and shooting. Nostalgia flooded her as they used to play those games regularly. Then she overheard two siblings talking about the game, mentioning that the prize was a sack of flour. When Letitia looked towards them, she saw Enoch standing there with them, and she remembered him as the guy to whom she had given her handkerchief. The girl and boy asked Enoch if he had a coin. However, Enoch declined, stating that the game owner was just making money and that no one was going to win. He advised them to go back home. Letitia came up behind them and offered her coin, saying they could use it if they didn't mind. As Enoch turned back to see who was speaking, the girl became very happy. She thanked Letitia and took the coin, urging her brother to go and play the game. Enoch tried to stop them, but it was too late. He then apologized to Letitia, admitting that both of them were still immature. Letitia reassured him, asking him not to apologize, as it was nice for her to see them so lively. Letitia then asked if they both were Enoch's brother and sister. Enoch responded with a yes, mentioning that they were twins. Letitia then shared her thought that Enoch's family must be very close. Enoch didn't respond to that, but he apologized for the late introduction. Letitia apologized, admitting she didn't understand what he was trying to say. Enoch then clarified that he was going to introduce himself, revealing that he was a Dirk named Enoch Achilles. Letitia also introduced herself, to which Enoch responded that he already remembered her. Enoch then asked Letitia why she didn't try playing the game herself. Letitia responded that it was because she didn't consider herself lucky. She mentioned that while some people were fortunate enough to win a prize at least once in their lives, She felt it was a pity for her. Enoch was impressed by her. Suddenly, Enoch's brother and sister came shouting his name, excitedly sharing that they had won a sack of flour. Both Enoch and Letitia were speechless for a few seconds, but soon Letitia laughed and remarked that his siblings must be among those lucky people. Enoch also responded with a yes. While seeing the confused expressions of both twins, the girl approached and asked to introduce herself. She then shared that her name was Enoch Achilles. The boy was about to say his name, but Enoch interrupted him and announced that he was her twin brother named Enoch Achilles. Letitia then greeted both of them and shared her name as Letitia Leroy. Enoch looked at Letitia, shaking her head here and there, which left Letitia confused. Then Il held the arms of both Enoch and Letitia, expressing that they were so lucky to have met each other, and suggested they play together. Then all four of them enjoyed the plaza, spending their entire day there. They had a great time together, exploring and enjoying the place. As the evening approached and it started to get dim, Il happily expressed that she had a great time enjoying with them. So Eli asked Letitia to come next time to their manor, promising to make a tart for her. However, Ian interrupted Ilel, stating that her tarts would give Letitia a stomachache, so he would make them instead. Il became angry and told Ian not to butt in their matter. Here, Enoch asked Letitia if she felt uncomfortable with them, but Letitia denied it, as she was sparkling with happiness. She reassured Enoch that she wasn't feeling any discomfort at all. In fact, she was blushing, feeling delighted to be part of the conversation. Enoch then expressed that they would be eagerly awaiting Letitia's visit to their house. Letitia thanked Enoch for the invitation. The scene then shifted to nighttime as Letitia rode back in her buggy. On the way, she reflected on how much fun she had just had, feeling nostalgic about the last time she experienced such joy. Letitia felt like a part of a real family, reminiscing about how they used to bake cookies together. She remembered the days when her brothers and sisters were like that, happily playing and having so much fun together. It brought back fond memories of joy and togetherness. There, she found herself wishing for a family like the Achilles household. Suddenly, she paused her thoughts, realizing what she was thinking. She began to wonder why she was longing for another family when she already had her own in the Leroy house. Lost in contemplation, she stood in front of her house, pondering these thoughts repeatedly. In the next scene, the Marquess talked with Letitia. He asked her if she had been socializing with the House Achilles. He also mentioned that they had been a ducal family in name only, but had actually fallen to ruin. He advised her to ensure that he didn't hear that nonsense again. There, Letitia tried to respond, but the Marquess wasn't ready to hear anything. He told her to keep quiet, stating that she was of no use in their family, and at least she should be obedient. Letitia was thinking about Enoch and their happy moments together, not wanting to grow apart from them. The scene then shifted to some time later, where Letitia entered the garden to meet Father Chaeundo. She greeted Father Chaeundo, who immediately apologized for summoning her on such short notice, explaining that he had an urgent matter to discuss. Confused, Letitia asked what the urgent matter was. Father Chaeundo responded that it was about her power. At that moment, Letitia stood silently in front of Chaeundo. Father Chaeundo then asked if she hadn't heard about the rumors and mentioned that closing her eyes didn't mean the world ceased to exist. He also shared that at his age, it wasn't easy to stand for long and asked if they could take seats. After seating on the seats, Letitia said she didn't think she had any power within herself. Father Chaeundo then suggested that perhaps it took longer to manifest and asked if she had ever felt that something was different. Letitia responded saying that if she was different from other people, maybe she was unlucky, or she should say she brought bad luck. Father Chaeundo then asked when she started feeling those things. Letitia responded that she wasn't sure, as she had been that way for as long as she could remember. Father Chaeundo then shared with Letitia that there were all kinds of powers in the House of Leroy, and among them some of the powers were actually quite useless. Of course, it was acknowledged as being very useful at some time. So actually what Father Chaeundo was trying to say was that a power could be in the limelight or neglected according to times. He then shared that according to him, if she was right, it seemed that she didn't need awakening because her power was already awakened. Upon hearing this, Letitia got stunned and stood up. She then asked if she really had any power, pleading to know as she felt she desperately needed one. Tears welled up in her eyes as she posed the question. Father Chaeundo responded with a sorry, admitting he hadn't been able to find her power yet. He was also saddened because he could see the pain in Letitia, feeling cornered by the cold eyes of the people. The maid was spying on them, trying to listen to their conversation. However, she couldn't hear them properly, only catching snippets of their words like power and bad luck. After some time, Letitia was in the kitchen, engrossed in making something. As she worked, she was lost in thought, pondering whether she truly possessed any power. If she did indeed have some kind of power, why did she have to endure discrimination and neglect all the time? On the other side, a maid called out to Letitia, but due to Letitia being lost in deep thought, she didn't hear the maid, so the maid came closer and shook Letitia to get her attention. Letitia then apologized for not listening and asked if the maid had called her. The maid shared that she had already called Letitia twice and asked her to be careful as there were many dangerous things in the kitchen. Letitia happily apologized to her and then went to bake the crust of the tart in the oven. While the baking was in progress, the maid happily watched the tart as it baked. Once it was ready, Letitia did some garnishing on it. After the final touch-up, they both became very happy, feeling accomplished as they had successfully completed their task. Letitia then happily shared that she was going to give it to her brothers and sisters. The maid asked if she wasn't going to have some for herself. To this, Letitia responded that she could make some more for herself later on. While heading towards their siblings' room, Letitia wondered where she should go first, remembering that she had seen Diana going outside in the morning. Eventually, she happily entered Emil's room, greeted him, and served the tart in front of him. Emil, who was writing something, looked at Letitia with confusion and then noticed the tarts. Letitia responded that she knew he liked dessert, so she baked it for him. However, to her surprise, Emil rudely told Letitia that he was busy with some work. Letitia maintained her smile and apologized to Emil, acknowledging that she might have interrupted his work. She told him she would leave so he could get back to it. After coming out of the room, she didn't lose her morale and decided to go to Irene's room next. She remembered how Irene liked sweets since she was small, and they always had fun together enjoying them. When Letitia reached Irene's room, she greeted Irene. Irene, upon seeing her, asked what she was doing there. Letitia explained that she was on her way to give the tart to her. She also mentioned that it was a big tart, which she knew Irene liked, and she was going to ask if they could have it together. But before Letitia could ask Irene interrupted her, saying that she hates figs and tarts. Letitia was surprised and asked why, as she remembered that Irene liked tarts. However, at that moment, Irene shouted at Letitia, insisting that she hated tarts and Letitia was mistaken about her preferences. Irene also shouted at Letitia, telling her not to try to stop her for things like that. Letitia was stunned by Irene's reaction and fell silent, only managing to apologize to Irene. Here, the maid who had been spying on Father Chaeundo and Letitia came running towards the maid who was helping Letitia in cooking. The spying maid excitedly shared that she had some great news for them. However, upon arriving, she noticed the other maid eating something. There, the spy maid asked what she was eating at a time like that, to which the other maid happily responded that it was a tart which Lord Emil had given her. The other maid then asked about the news she had. The spy maid responded that she overheard Father Chaeundo talking to Lady Letitia, and Father Chaeundo mentioned that Lady Letitia already had a power. But did she know what it was? It was a power that brought bad luck, and so the false information would start getting rumored all around like that. In the next scene, Letitia wandered in the garden because the weather was so good. There, she saw some pigeons gathered in one spot, pecking at something. But as Letitia approached, she was stunned to see it was her tart she had made just a few hours ago. Here, The maids were discussing the rumor about Lady Letitia bringing bad luck to someone. Some couldn't believe it, but others were persuading them that it might be true. They pointed out that the maid who served Lord Emo fell sick after eating a tart made by Lady Letitia. Hearing this, the other maids became scared, realizing that the maid who fell sick had only been near Letitia and was affected. So they all decided from that moment to keep their distance from Lady Letitia and let Mary handle all her tasks. Here, Letitia was reminiscing about the old times when she had great moments with her brothers and sisters, but now they all seemed distant and rude. In the next scene, Letitia was depicted standing in front of Achilles' house, pondering whether she was even allowed to be there. On the other hand, El saw Letitia from the window and wondered if it was Lady Letitia. She asked Ian, who suggested they go and check for themselves. When they went out to investigate, ELL became ecstatic upon realizing that it was indeed Letitia. So Il ran towards her and hugged her in joy. She then asked if Letitia had come to visit them, her excitement bubbling over. Ian gently suggested that ELL calm down and allow Letitia to speak. Despite this, Iale couldn't contain herself and shared how much she had missed Letitia. Letitia happily responded that she had come to keep her promise. Il then asked Letitia to follow her to the next destination, to which Letitia agreed, curious about where they were going. Ian then asked where El was taking Letitia. El shouted at Ian to keep quiet and just follow her. El then took Letitia directly to their kitchen and showed it to her. There, El asked Letitia to sit down on a chair and watch her bake. Letitia tensely asked if ELL was really going to make everything herself. Il reassured Letitia not to worry, as she knew Letitia would enjoy the tarts. Letitia told Il that Enoch would be upset with her again, so she shouldn't get herself in trouble. Il responded confidently that she knew how to make tarts. Letitia laughed, teasing Il about her eagerness to make tarts. Ian chimed in, sharing that ILA could be quite stubborn once she set her mind on something. Ian then asked Letitia to let him know if Il made her uncomfortable. He also explained that his sister could be a bit rough, but only because she was outgoing. The truth was, ELA surprised him at times, but she never made him feel uncomfortable, so in those moments, he felt grateful. Here, Letitia was thinking that she couldn't even remember the last time someone had shown her such kindness. She also shared with Ian that it was a relief for her. Ian mentioned that she seemed a bit off, so he was worried about her. Letitia thanked Ian for his concern. There, Ilail called Ian for some help. Ian asked why she was calling him. Il replied, asking if he didn't think a simple tart would be boring, so she added some apple to make an apple tart. Letitia then asked them if they were doing fine, as it was a bit boring to just stay seated. Ile responded that she was their guest, so they couldn't let her do any work. Letitia shared that it didn't matter to her, and she would make the compote. So all three of them worked together to make the tart and baked it. After it was done baking and came out of the oven, it looked amazing. Ian teased El, saying that Lady Letitia had made all the tarts on her own. Il furiously reminded him that she had made the dough if he remembered. At that moment, Enoch also came back home and asked his twin siblings what they were doing. Suddenly, Letitia called his name and they both looked at each other. Letitia greeted Enoch, and he asked if she came to meet them, as he had been waiting for her and wanted to meet her again. Letitia blushed and apologized, saying she didn't understand. Enoch responded that he had something to return to her, so he was glad she came. At that moment, Letitia was trying to remember if she had lent something to Enoch, but she was also blushing at the thought of him wanting to see her again. Letitia started to lose consciousness as she thought about Enoch, but Ian and Ilail took care of her. Letitia then shared that they had made an apple tart and asked Enoch to try it. Il also chimed in, saying that she and Lady Letitia had made it together. Ian interrupted her, insisting that Lady Letitia had made it all alone. Ilail hit Ian on the head, telling him to be quiet. Ian responded that it was the truth, but once again, Ela hit him on the head, asking him to be quiet. Here, Letitia became tense, worrying about what would happen if Enoch didn't like the taste of the tart, recalling past experiences with her sister and brother. So she told Enoch again that he didn't need to eat it if he didn't want to. Enoch gazed at the tart, and Letitia grew nervous. However, Enoch responded that he could see how much effort Letitia had put into it, so it would be a waste if he didn't eat it. He then took his first bite of the tart. Meanwhile, Letitia began silently begging to God that her tart would turn out good. Letitia asked Enoch about the taste, to which Enoch responded that it was delicious and asked if he could have some more. Hearing this, tears welled up in Letitia's eyes as she remembered the tart thrown in her house garden. Seeing her cry, Enoch asked her what had happened. Letitia responded with an apology, explaining that she didn't mean to cry. Enoch then came closer to Letitia and reassured her, saying that it was the best tart he had ever tasted. He encouraged her to have some too, reminding her that she couldn't enjoy it while crying. He suggested making the atmosphere a bit happier. Letitia blushed at Enoch's words and wondered if he would stop saying such touching things repeatedly. Ian and ILL also arrived and were shocked to see Letitia crying. El asked what was going on. Letitia once again expressed that she hadn't meant to cry. Il asked Enoch what he had done to Letitia that made her start crying. Enoch, confused, shared that he had simply remarked that the tart was very delicious. Il grew angrier, and Enoch became tense as his body started sweating. Letitia then explained that Enoch hadn't done anything. She had just cried on her own. Il inquired about what had happened to make her start crying. Letitia debated whether it would be okay to confide in Enoch and his twin siblings. Taking a deep breath, she crossed her fingers and revealed that she felt comforted, which is why she had started crying as she believed her family hated her. Seeing her in distress, Enoch stepped in front of Letitia and warmly invited her to visit them anytime she wanted. He also inquired if she would consider coming to see them more often. Letitia was speechless at that moment. Enoch continued, expressing his intention to prepare something special next time to bring her joy, encouraging her not to cry in front of him. Impressed by Enoch's kindness, Letitia expressed her gratitude before hopping back into her buggy to head home. Inside Achilles' house, Enoch watched her through the window and commented to his siblings that he thought Letitia seemed like a nice person. At that moment, Enoch blushed slightly, touched by the encounter. Il also nodded in agreement with Enoch's assessment of Letitia. Lost in thoughts of Letitia, Enoch was interrupted by Ian, who asked if Enoch had mentioned having something to return to Lady Letitia. Enoch replied that he would give it to her next time they met. The scene then shifted to a later time when Letitia arrived back at Leroy's house, still pondering over Enoch and the others' kindness. Suddenly, the Marquess appeared and inquired about where she had been. However, Letitia hesitated in responding to the question. Out of nowhere, the Marquess began shouting at her, questioning what she was up to, reminding her of his warning to stay away from the unlucky Achilles. He emphasized that this was his final warning, threatening that if he heard of her socializing with Achilles again, she would be expelled from the family. There, Letitia couldn't help but wonder why her father was being so cold with her. Moments later, as Letitia entered her room, she was surprised to find Diana already inside. Letitia asked what had brought Diana into her room, to which Diana simply replied that she could come in whenever she wanted. Letitia asked Diana if there was something she wanted to tell her. Diana responded affirmatively, admitting that it bothered her to see Letitia spending time with some losers lately. Surprised, Letitia asked who Diana was referring to as losers. In response, Diana questioned if she really needed to explain it to her. Letitia retorted, telling Diana not to imply that she was referring to Achilles' household. Diana confirmed it with a yes and made a remark, insinuating that at least Letitia wasn't that stupid. This angered Letitia, marking the first time she became upset with Diana. Diana questioned why Letitia would associate with people who had no money, luck, or talent. Letitia, enraged, shouted at Diana, warning her not to speak like that. Diana also shouted at Letitia, urging her not to associate with Achilles, as everyone was already gossiping about it. They were saying that the first daughter of Marquess Leroy was hanging out with the cursed people of the Achilles house. Shocked, Letitia asked, "What?" Diana shouted again, expressing her concern about the disgrace Letitia had brought to their family's reputation. As people were saying that like attracts, Letitia glared at Diana and then firmly stated that Diana could look down on her if she wanted. But she shouldn't speak like that about Achilles' family. Hearing this, Diana asked in surprise why Letitia didn't speak about them. Letitia furiously responded that it was because Achilles' family was better than all of them, who achieved things through their own efforts rather than relying on their family's wealth. Diana began laughing upon hearing this, and then shared that she had heard Letitia made a tart for children, but she wouldn't have eaten it either. Diana rudely commented, suggesting that who knows what Letitia had put in the tart. Shocked, Letitia asked Diana what that look on her face was for. Diana responded by asking if Letitia really thought they would all eat her tart. She then laughed and apologized for making Letitia face the truth. Diana then threatened to tell their father right away if she heard that Letitia was hanging out with those losers again. She warned Letitia to watch her behavior if she didn't want to get kicked out of the house. Letitia staggered down and sank to the ground, overwhelmed with emotion, and began crying over her situation. The scene then shifted to a few days later, where Mary was pleading with Letitia to eat something, as she hadn't been eating properly for a few days and was at risk of making herself sick. But Letitia denied, saying she had no appetite. Mary was tense for Letitia's health, but she also mentioned that the entrance exam was coming up soon. Hearing this, Letitia got up and asked if Mary had said something about the entrance exam. Mary responded with a yes, explaining that she was talking about the Knight's Order entrance exam. Hearing this, Letitia wondered if really so much time had passed already. She then took something out from the drawer. Seeing this, Mary asked about it, to which Letitia responded that she had made a long time ago. Mary examined it and asked if it was a bracelet made of gold thread. Letitia confirmed and explained that it was supposed to bring good luck to someone who had an important event coming up. Letitia wondered if she should give it to Rivian. Mary responded with a yes, pointing out that he was her fiancé. However, Letitia wasn't entirely in agreement, as she felt a tug at her chest over that idea. Mary then asked Letitia if she had tried going outside, mentioning that her favorite flowers were in full bloom. Letitia, hearing this, felt happy and thought that she should indeed go for a walk in the garden. When Letitia went out for a walk, she saw Xavier there. Xavier appeared tense upon seeing her. Letitia asked Xavier how his training was going, but instead of replying, Xavier just shared that he was very busy and quickly ran away. As Letitia continued walking through her house, she noticed that every maid was trying to keep their distance from her or actively avoiding her. Seeing this, Letitia became tense and wondered why everyone was avoiding her. When Letitia was having her tea, she asked the maid named Anna if something was wrong with her, as she didn't seem well. Anna responded with a no and then explained that she had some errands for Marries Leroy, so she needed to excuse herself. With that, Anna hurriedly left the room. Letitia noticed that everyone was acting strangely. As she walked around, she saw other maids making excuses and quickly leaving whenever she approached. She couldn't help but feel tense, wondering why everyone was avoiding her. Suddenly, Letitia saw Irene, but Irene was visibly shaking at the sight of her. Letitia approached her and asked if Irene knew why all the other maids were avoiding her. Trembling, Irene asked Letitia not to come any closer. Irene shouted that she was scared something bad might happen if Letitia stayed with her. Hearing this, Letitia was shocked and asked Irene what she meant by that. Irene then asked how Letitia could walk around with such power. Letitia was puzzled because she was unaware of the rumor circulating about her. Irene then shared that she had heard Letitia's power was bringing misfortune to others. This stunned Letitia, as she had never considered such a possibility before. Irene was so scared of Letitia that she asked her to stay in her room to prevent any harm from occurring. Letitia then explained that while she admitted she wasn't as lucky as others, she never said that bad things happened when anyone was around her. Irene asked if Letitia was sure about what she had just said. Hearing this, Letitia inquired what Irene was referring to. Irene responded by suggesting that Letitia could be the one causing bad things to happen. This accusation caused Letitia to shout in anger. There, Emil came up and asked what all the fuss was about. Seeing Emil, Irene dashed behind him, seeking safety. Letitia then asked Emil if he had also heard the rumors that bad things happen when someone was with her. Emil responded with a yes. Letitia then asked if he also believed in those rumors. Emil denied believing in them, but he also asked Letitia not to be too harsh on Irene. Hearing this, Letitia was shocked and wanted to say something in response. But Emil reiterated that Letitia was scaring Irene. Letitia became even more upset upon hearing this. She carefully looked at Irene, who was indeed shivering behind Emil. Letitia then sadly asked if they all were truly afraid of her. Letitia then apologized to Irene, explaining that she never intended to scare her. However, Irene still looked at Letitia with fear in her eyes. It was at that moment when every maid began murmuring amongst themselves about the situation. As they discussed and shared their concerns with one another, they eventually decided that no one would approach Lady Letitia. Some maids even considered informing Marquess Leroy about the situation, but others urged them not to, fearing they might get involved and face unknown consequences. Here, Letitia sank down onto the ground, tears streaming down her face, questioning why everyone was treating her this way when it wasn't her fault. Suddenly, there was a knock at Letitia's room door. Letitia called out for the person to come in. It's none other than Father Chaeundo. Seeing him, Letitia asks what brings him to her room. Father Chaeundo responds that he has something important to discuss with her and asks if she could spare some time for him. Letitia responds with a yes and invites Father Chaeundo to come inside her room. Father Chaeundo also apologizes to Letitia for coming without informing her. Then they both were seated on chairs, and while having tea, Father Chaeundo shared that he thinks the strange rumors must have been giving her a hard time. Letitia responds with a no, insisting that she was fine. Father Chaeundo then shares that he wants to know what Letitia thinks about the rumors. Letitia didn't understand and asks Father Chaeundo to clarify the question. Father Chaeundo then asks if she really believed that her power was bringing bad luck to others. Letitia sadly responds with a no, expressing that she didn't believe in it because she thought her power was not making other people unhappy. Father Chaeundo then stares at Letitia for a moment and tells her that he is glad to hear it, because he also didn't believe in such absurd rumors. He then shared that, because of this, he was going to find out what her power really was, which would also prove that she did not possess the power of bringing misfortune. He reassured her that she didn't have to act like she was a criminal. Hearing this, Letitia thanks Father Chaeundo for his understanding and support. Father Chaeundo then mentioned that the weather was beautiful and suggested that Letitia go and get some fresh air while he took care of things. Letitia thanked him again and asked Father Chaeundo to take care of himself as well. After Father Chaeundo leaves her room, Letitia feels lighter knowing that there is still someone who believes in her. It's a big relief for her, and she resolves not to lose her nerve. Letitia then asks Mary if she would help her get ready for an out. Letitia travels by buggy to a library, where she searches for books to discover what power she possesses. She immerses herself in various books, determined to find answers because she knows that if her father heard about the rumors, he would give her a hard time about it. As Letitia was leaving the library, still pondering over the fact that she hadn't found anything useful, she suddenly encountered Duke Enoch Achilles right in front of her. It felt like she was bumping into him as if it were destiny. Letitia shared that it had been a long time since they had seen each other and asked if he was doing well. Enoch responded with a yes and asked about her health and ongoing situation. Letitia responded that it was the same as old times. She then asked about his siblings. Enoch responded that he had come by himself. Letitia then responded with an okay, but with a very sad face. Seeing this, Enoch asked if something was wrong with her. Letitia asked him to ask again as she didn't understand. So Enoch shared that he thought she looked a bit down. Letitia agreed with him and asked if by any chance he knew about the special powers of her family. To which Enoch responded that all he knew was that each member had a mysterious power within them. Letitia then asked if he also knew that she had no mysterious power. Enoch responded with a yes, but he also mentioned that he thought it was just a rumor. Letitia then became sad and told him that it was the reason why her family was worried about her. At first, her family thought that she had no power, but now they all think that she has the power of making people's lives miserable. Hearing this, Enoch got tense. Here, Letitia also shouted that for her, it's not the same power, as she didn't think she had the power of bringing misfortune. Enoch was thinking for some seconds and then said that he didn't know the details. But from what he knew, God was touched by the sincere prayers of House Leroy and bestowed them with special powers as a gift. So God would never give an evil power to a house like yours. Enoch reassured, I don't believe your power is about making others miserable. Hearing this, Letitia felt relieved and hugged Enoch, thanking him for believing in her. The scene then shifted to the Leroy house where Irene asked Diana if she had also heard the rumors. Diana inquired about which rumor Irene was talking about. Irene responded that she was talking about Letitia's power. Diana asked Irene not to take tension as Letitia was the symbol of good luck and she was at home. Irene replied that she still couldn't help worrying, as Letitia had been walking around here and there the other day. Diana agreed with Irene, saying it shouldn't be happening. Irene asked if their father knew about it. Diana responded with a no, mentioning she didn't think their father knew yet because he was busy with the new business he started. Irene then asked what they should do about it. Diana asked Irene not to worry, assuring her that she would talk to their father about it when he came back from work, as Irene knew their father listened to everything she said. Irene tensely asked how their father would react when he found out about it. Diana responded with a smile, saying she didn't know if he would lock her up or kick her out of the house. The scene returns to Letitia and Enoch, with Letitia still crying while hugging Enoch. Enoch then shared that he thought she looked very anxious, so he would give her his good luck charm. Letitia looked confusingly towards Enoch as he brought out the handkerchief she had given him a while ago. Enoch then explained that it was his lucky charm, as it was very precious to him, and he asked Letitia to treasure it with her. Letitia got happy and responded that if the handkerchief was so precious to him, then she was returning it back to him. Enoch told Letitia there was no need for it, but Letitia shouted a big no, promising him that she would return the handkerchief to him. Seeing Letitia so happy, Enoch got flustered and happily asked Letitia to do so as she wanted. She then also told him that she wanted to return his kindness as well. Enoch asked what she meant by that. Letitia responded that she felt like she was always receiving something from him. Enoch then smiled and asked if she would come to the upcoming Knight's Order entrance exam to see him. Letitia surprisingly asked if he was really asking her. Enoch responded that he would be very encouraged if she would be there, but if she felt uncomfortable, she didn't need to come. There, Letitia happily told Enoch that she was not at all uncomfortable, and she would definitely be there to cheer him on. Enoch also shared that it's great, as now he would wait for her, after which they both looked into each other's eyes happily. There, Letitia started wondering what was wrong with her suddenly. In the evening, when Letitia got back home, she paused at the entrance as Irene, Xavier, and Father Leos were waiting for her, standing together. Seeing them, Letitia asked the reason for them standing there, upon which Irene shouted and asked Father Leos to look that Letitia was going around everywhere as she pleased. Father Leos asked Irene to calm down. Irene again shouted, saying how could she stay calm when Letitia was going around everywhere? Letitia sadly asked them why they were all doing this to her. Letitia was then getting close to Xavier to talk, but Xavier also started shivering and asked Letitia to stand where she was. Letitia became even sadder seeing Xavier react the same way. Out of nowhere, Father Leos asked everyone to leave from there. Irene tried to interrupt, but Father Leos shouted that he told them to leave, so both Irene and Xavier left from there with sad faces. Father Leos then shared that he thought the rumors about her must have spread all over throughout the manor, and she must be strong at times like this. Father Leos then told her that he would go to the magic tower to find out more about her power, so she had to pull herself together. Letitia thanked Father Leos for motivating her. The scene then shifted to a few days later, where Letitia was inside her room, wondering if all the fuss would stop once she found proof that no bad powers were even manifested in the family. She started crying over it, as she was going to prove that her power was not misfortune. In the next scene, it was the day of the Knight's Order entrance exam. Letitia waited anxiously at the entrance for Rivian. She noticed everyone wearing the gold bracelet, but something felt off. She wondered where Rivian was, as he hadn't arrived yet. Suddenly, her shock grew as she spotted Diana standing beside Rivian. There, Diana was wishing Rivian the best of luck for his exam and proudly presented him with a gold thread bracelet she had made for his success. Rivian graciously thanked Diana for her thoughtful gesture. Seeing this, Letitia felt a pang of jealousy, but she tried to compose herself. Suddenly, she noticed Duke Enoch Achilles standing before her. Enoch expressed his worry that she might not have come. Letitia responded, reminding him that she had already assured him of her support and presence. Letitia noticed that Enoch didn't have a gold thread bracelet on his hand. Curious, she asked Enoch if he would accept a gift from her. Enoch inquired if it wasn't the gold thread bracelet. Letitia explained that she wanted him to have it and asked if he was willing to accept it. Enoch glanced at the bracelet for a moment before accepting it graciously, thanking Letitia. Letitia remarked that it suited him well and wished him the best of luck for his exam. Here, the scene shifts to an earlier moment as Rivian waits anxiously, scanning the surroundings for Letitia. While standing, he hears someone calling his name. Assuming it's Letitia, he turns around, only to be surprised to see that it's actually Diana. Rivian inquired about Letitia's absence, to which Diana explained that Letitia couldn't make it, so she came in her place. Rivian expressed gratitude to Diana for her support and mentioned that he was about to leave. Diana asked Rivian to wait as she had something for him, and she presented him with a gold thread bracelet. Observing this, Rivian insisted that he didn't require the bracelet, but Diana insisted on tying it to his hand, explaining that it was a symbol of good luck and he should wear it. Rivian smiled and jokingly asked if she was taking care of him in place of her sister. Diana replied that someone had to look out for him and wished him good luck for his exam. Suddenly, Diana noticed Rivian looking strangely at something. Following his gaze, she saw Letitia conversing with Enoch Achilles. Shocked, Diana realized that Letitia was once again associating with someone from the cursed Achilles family. In her mind, Diana entertained wicked thoughts to tarnish Letitia's image in Rivian's eyes. Thank you for watching our video. If you like our romance manhwa recaps, please consider subscribing to the channel. You can also watch a similar romance manhwa story by clicking on this video right here.